evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 9th of March, 2025. Spring is almost here. Is it here? We debated that last week, and I think we decided a week or two to go. Anyway, hope you are all well. Hope you're all having a great weekend. Weather has been out. It has been lovely this weekend. I've been able to do quite a bit of gardening. I've also had a day out. Up in London for a nice little trip. May get into that a little bit later on. But more importantly, I've done some work in the garden. I've done some work on the allotment, so I'm feeling very, very happy. Now, it is still a bit chilly at night, which brings us up to tonight's topic: cloches, cold frames, grow houses. What do you use? Why do you use them? How do you use them? That's what I want to find out. So start thinking about your answer. But do you have either of those three things that I mentioned: a cloche, a grow house, or a cold frame? In the meantime, let's find out if anybody is there. Over on Instagram, Cobden Corner has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. We have got Adrian saying hello to Richard and all. Hello to you. Allotted Chef, good evening all. Absolutely stunning weekend for being in the garden, wasn't it just? I bet everybody is in a very happy mood tonight as well because of it. Turbo Stream says, good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Stuart Jackson says, evening, Richard and the Veg Army. It's so nice to be able to get in my garden today. Got lots done. Excellent, excellent. Hargrave Gas. Evening, everyone. Hope you've had a great week. We've done a lot of tidying this week. Weather really suited to getting stuff done. Indeed. Anna Jones is there saying, good evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. Rebecca is there. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Gary, good evening, everyone. Good evening to you. Scott's seed to table plot 13. Good evening, all. A trap knife causing back pain all week, so no gardening for me. So looking forward to a gardening chat fix. Sorry to hear that, but hopefully you enjoyed the chat nonetheless. Jenny's there. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all well. I'm just back from the allotment planting fruit trees. I'm just cooking tea. So in and out of the comments for a bit, but I am listening. At least you're here, and feel free to join in at any time. Nigel, Muddy Boots. Good evening, all. What a wonderful day we've had weather-wise. Indeed. Everyone is really good about the weather, aren't we? Digwell is there, and I think that looks like Morse code. So dash dot. I'm not sure what it says, but I'm sure he's going to tell us. Oh no, Jenny says, oh no, Scott, hope it's on the mend soon. Oh yeah. Digwell says, Nigel's first three words. Good evening, all. Is that what those? That's quite short for Morse code. I thought that'd be a bit more complicated. Turbo Stream. I've mainly been in my home garden, tidying and making it low maintenance woodland garden, so I can spend more time on the allotment. Good enough. I think that is important. I do have a garden. I have the allotment and I have the home garden, and I do try and make them both as low maintenance as possible within reason, while keeping them productive. Keep it simple. Keep it simple is the way I like to think of it, but also little and often makes all the difference. But yeah, we're getting really good work with both of the gardens. Anyway, Scott says all good now, just in time for work. Talking about his back pain. Stuart says I have a cold frame and a veggie pod plus a greenhouse, so I feel very lucky to only use a cold frame for spring for seedlings. Excellent, excellent. So over on Instagram, Mark J8108 has joined. A cold frame in spring for seedlings. Exactly what we want to find out more about. And James says, how was the new job, Richard? Really good, really positive. I've had a great week. First couple of days, induction was a little boring, but once I got into it, I think I'm going to work out quite well. You may get into that a little bit later. Turbo says, I had a trapped nerve, Scott. Took me weeks and a chiropractor to sort it. It blooming hurt. Rob says, good evening, all. Hope you've had a great week. And Kate says, good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. So, yes, cloches and cold frames. Now, for me, at this time of year, I think cloches, cold frames, if you've got a greenhouse, you're very lucky. Grow houses as well, I've mentioned. They come into their own at this time of year. At the moment, it is still pretty cold at night. We've had some really, really lovely days this week, and the sun has been shining. It's got pretty warm during the day, especially in the sun. But when that sun goes down, when it gets dark, it also gets chilly. And this is where cloches and cold frames come into their own, because they just hold on, trap in some of that heat for a little bit longer. So if we've got some young plants, it helps keep them a little bit warmer, and hopefully encourages them to grow when you don't have a greenhouse. And even if you don't have even if you do have a greenhouse, sorry, I still think they have their own uses. I tend to use mine. If I plant plants out, I cover them over with a cloche at this time of year, such as cabbages and brassicas, and that just helps warm up the soil and keep the plants warm so they get off to a half decent state. And it also helps keeps the birds off them as well. Now, one of the things that I was thinking about when I started this discussion, or when I started thinking about this discussion, is the grow houses. You know, those cheap ones I cannot stand. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll show you a fit picture of my grow house. That might be a better way to start this little conversation off. Where is it? So this is my grow house, which you may have seen on some of my videos. I've recently brought it from Homebase in their closing down sales. It's only 30 odd quid, so I was quite pleased with it. But it's a wooden one, which is the type that I like. Got three shelves on the three shelves on the inside, so plenty of room. Twin wall polycarbonate glazing. It holds onto heat really well. In fact, it gets so warm during the day, it gets quite humid in there as well. The ones I personally really hate are the cheap ones, that metal poles that sort of push together with some plastic pieces, and then you pull over, like potting on a jumper, this piece of plastic sheet that it's like putting a tent together. The reason I hate those, and I know there's going to be a lot of people who like them, but the reason I hate those is every spring, I can guarantee you will hear of at least one person, winters came along and blown those over, which is why I'm not a fan of that particular type of grow houses. I prefer the wooden ones, something a bit more solid, a bit less likely to blow over. And the trouble when these get blown over, all your seedlings get mixed up, your plants get damaged, you end up losing a lot of work, and it happens every year. I can guarantee it. You will know of somebody it happened to this year. So Stuart Jackson says, today I've been mainly pricking on seedlings, tomato, basil, coriander, and a couple of chilies. Rob says, sowed some tomatoes today. Everybody's been getting busy, aren't we? I think as soon as this sort of March hits, everybody comes out of the woodwork and starts sowing their seeds, pricking out their plants. I've been sowing all year round, but it is good to get more done. Kate says, pricking out today and using my shed to keep them in. It has a lot of light, so pretty helpful. Got a cold frame too. It's all about the light, isn't it? I think at the moment the light levels are getting to a decent amount, but light is such a big factor. And I can see this in my seedlings. Those that are under grow lights really are growing much better. Turbo Stream says, my home garden has been neglected since I took on the allotment, so it needed some TLC. So this is slightly off topic, but my way that I tackle, and this, I'm sharing this for everyone, tackle a home garden and I tackle an allotment. I do half an hour in the garden before I go to work, half hour on the allotment after work, and it soon looks after itself. That's the only advice I've got for you in how to manage the two. Rob says, harvested my last potatoes, ready for this year's. That's amazing. March, and you're still harvesting potatoes. Just goes to show keeping them in the ground does them a good job. Turbo Stream sowed the Alicante tomatoes today too. Excellent. Stuart Jackson says, I've had a few plastic mini grow houses. Most of them blew away in the wind. That's why I saved up for my greenhouse. This is exactly it. I mean, I can't slate anybody for buying them because everybody's finances are different and not everybody has room for a greenhouse. But if you can have a greenhouse, have a greenhouse. Hargrave says, just put the remains of one of those dodgy grow houses in the skip this evening. Completely collapsed, poles bent, and snapped straight away. See, I told you, didn't I? As soon as I would start on this topic, it would, people will have shared it with us of what has happened with them. Rob says, I got one, taking the shelves out and use it as a tomato house. So that probably comes into play a bit later on in the season. But yeah, I can see it working for that. Anna Jones says, either harden off or direct sow under Hacknick's green net tunnels. Later on, courgettes and things in pots go under plastic dome cloches. Need to watch the humidity though, just in case things rot. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, the plastic dome things are something that I was hoping we would get into. I have not got any of those, but I'm sure some of you out there have got some. But an alternative that I've always used, rather than those are like a bell-shaped clear plastic thing that you place over your plants in order to give them a greenhouse effect. In replacement for those, what I've used has been the what do you call them? Plastic bottles. I knew I'd get there in the end. Plastic bottles. I've just cut the bottom off and I've placed that over some of my plants to act as a cloche instead. Nice and cheap and easy to get hold of. Richard Golden's joined. Hello all. Good evening to you. Keeping an eye on Instagram. Dahlia679 has joined as well. Lovely to see you. Jenny says, I'm making capillary matted benches using pallets. I'm making them so my plastic cloches can be placed over and secured for the winter, spring seedlings, etc. Excellent, excellent. Please do share a photo of those. I'd love to see how they are. Kate says, so annoyed, Lo. I wanted to sow in my agrarian plug plant trainers, but in the house move, I've lost a lid and can't find a replacement lid anywhere. That is annoying. These are I don't know if you can see it actually, the agrarian root trainers that Kate is talking about. Can I bring it in? Yeah, I think I can. It's one of these. These are brilliant pieces of kit, but she's lost this bit, which is quite important. But they are great pieces of kit, including that one. I've got 3 of them now. Digwell says, just a small 6x4 greenhouse for me, heated to 16 degrees C at present, just as well with the beast from Europe coming soon. 3 centimeters of snow per hour predicted. So I've not heard about this beast of Europe, so please do enlighten us a bit more on that. But this is the thing, I have thought about heating a greenhouse, because I do have 3 greenhouses, 1 here at home, 2 on the allotment. None of them are heated. And I have been thinking about getting a small greenhouse to heat at some point. And we've discussed that on a past show. We'll figure that out later on. Scott says, I put some spare chili seedlings in my greenhouse a week or so back and had a few frosts, and they are untouched and growing well. So tempted to put the rest out. Funny enough, I've just put some of my chilies, peppers, and aubergines and tomatoes into my grow house to see how they get on as a sacrificial. If they do okay, then it'd be fine. However, Digger's just mentioned this beast from Europe, so I'm waiting to find out more about that before I make a decision. Turbo Stream says, my mini plastic grow house has pockets for bricks to weigh it down. It's only used to harden off seedlings and goes in the shed in the winter. I've heard about these pockets to weigh for bricks to weigh things down. I think that is a good thing to do. And Nigel says, plastic grow house is perfect inside of a greenhouse or polytunnel. Easy to heat a small space with a candle on a bottle. Yeah, I on the bottom, sorry. I will admit, I don't like them because they get blown over, but in the right circumstances, like anything, every tool has the right use if they are done well. And Digra says they are okay if they're weighed down properly. They are. I agree with that, but you do tend to lose a shelf when you weigh it down properly. Well, that's my experience anyway. But yeah, everyone's different. Turbo Stream says, I've been looking at greenhouses, but my space isn't big enough at home. Keep looking. They come in a wide range of different sizes these days, but keep your eye out. I'm sure we can come up with something. What have we got? Nigel says, I use corrugated plastic sheet bent into an arc. Use these to protect my early peas. Now, funny enough, this corrugated plastic sheet is exactly, I've got another picture for this. This is one of my, well, a set of my cloches, corrugated plastic trained into an arch, but it's actually got this aluminium or metal frame that holds it all together. I actually got these from my grandfather. I inherited these, and these are my type of cloches that I tend to use here at home. I could use them on the allotment, but these things are so precious to me because they're from my grandfather, or they were my grandfather's. I couldn't take them down in the allotment and risk them getting stolen or anything. But these things are brilliant as cloches. They are open-ended, so you get a bit of ventilation, but they do hold on to temperature quite well during the night, and they seem to be performing very, very well. You don't have to have the metal frame, as Nigel was saying. You could make a dome using this corrugated plastic and just hold it into place with a series of canes or something. For sure, some of you can come up with other ways of doing this should you need to. Where was that comment? There. Nicola has joined, saying, evening, Richard and all. Good evening to you. A Lottie Chef says, I use one of those cheap plastic grow houses inside my greenhouse. Again, please don't take what I said when I'm against them to offence. It's just my personal opinion on them and my experience. But again, I will say, if you use them right and you weigh them down, they work well. Turbo Stream says, I drank grow enough to justify the cost of a greenhouse. Before I moved back into my mum's after she died, she gave away a lovely greenhouse. See, I mean, I think a greenhouse is just one of those amazing things that we all need to have if you are really into your vegetable gardening. But you do need the right space for one. You need a lot of things to have one. Let me move that. Digwell says the advanced modelling shows a wintry shift around March the 15th. Under the winter blast, Kent could face 3 centimetres per hour with snow lasting for 6 hours from 6 a.m. on Saturday, while London 2 centimetres. Is that this weekend, this coming weekend? We'll keep an eye on that. If it doesn't come, we'll blame Digwell for that. Over on Instagram, Carolina D. Jamel has joined. Welcome along. Gary says, I was given mini tunnels as a gift. I use them for overwintering lettuce. Now, actually, this brings us up to something I haven't really mentioned. I said at this time of year, these cloches, these grow houses and things like that come into their own. But actually, over winter, you can use them for overwintering things like lettuce and spinach as well to really get them off to a good start. I've got to say, in some ways, I think cloches have more uses than a greenhouse, and I certainly think they work for more people than anything else. I forgot to mention my veggie pod as well. I've got veggie pod, which also has a similar solar setup. Turbo Stream says, on the allotment, I use bendy hoop kits with veggie mesh cover for newly planted plants. They will give some protection for a few weeks. Indeed, they will. And again, bendy hoop kits, veggie mesh cover, our veggie pod is basically that as well. And everything works. Nicholas says, I've looked at replacing the polytunnel plastic. 9 by 3 meters is 240 quid. It's an investment. It's an investment. What else have we got? Digwell says, predicted at present to be akin to the beast from the east back in 2018. So it could be cold this weekend. We've got to keep an eye on the weather, keep an eye on our thermometers, and just see how much the weather changes this weekend and whether it's going to make a big difference to our gardening. I do say that I think English or the British people are always talking about the weather anyway. But I think if you're a allotmenter or gardener or farmer, you're always paying attention to the weather too, because we do need to see. Well, I'm always worried that some of my young plants are going to get killed if they are outside and it gets cold. So paying attention to the weather is very, very important. In fact, Nicholas says, glad I have heating now, which I can totally see. Now, cold frames. I actually have got a cold frame. My cold frame is a bit battered though, so I'm going to have to replace it soon. This is my cold frame. I still use it for hardening off at the moment. As you can see, the top has fallen out of it. But again, for hardening off, I think these things are brilliant. I tend to have, or I certainly used to have, I've got to get more cold frames and more grow houses to do this, but it's what I would call a system, a production line, where I would harden my plants off by moving them from one cold frame or one grow house to another. And what I would basically do is have the lid open on one of the grow houses or cold frames, in order to start getting them used to colder temperatures. Rather than moving the plants in and out every day, I let the grow houses do the work for me. That was always my attitude anyway. Um, the thought for me, the thought, especially with how many plants I grow from seed, moving them in and out every day is just too much. Just too much. Digwell says -4 degrees C predicted for the Shire, Gloucestershire to the ignorant. I haven't looked at the weather actually. I had a quick look earlier to see what it's going to do next weekend, um, but I haven't actually taken it in thinking about it. But it was expected to rain this weekend, and we never got anything, thankfully. Turbo Stu says my homemade cold frame might get used instead. Yeah, yes, we have got a picture of that coming up. In fact, I tell you what, this is a good chance to go to Adrian's or Turbo Stream's own cold frame. As you can see here, I'm just waiting for it to come up on my second screen so I can have a good look at it. There we go. Oh no, that's just his allotment. Sorry, I didn't think that made sense. But this is his cold frame, homemade cold frame, which looks a lot like any other cold frame, but he's made it himself. It looks great, I've got to say. Does the job. Is this also where you have your seed bed, your seeds in there as a seed bed to get your seedlings started off as well, Adrian? But yeah, the idea of these cold frames, they're simple things. They're just a simple frame with glass and what have you all the way around it to hold on to a lot of our temperatures. Rob says, my weather app says it's going to get colder from Tuesday. We do love talking about the weather, don't we? We do love talking about the weather. Anna Jones says, I found some mesh food covers, umbrella-like things for covering food. Good for protecting pots. They fit very well over the top and keep everything out. Frosts and pests, just like a mini veggie pod. No, I didn't think of this. That does make a lot of sense. So those mini, I know what you're talking about. They're almost like doily material around the outside for protecting or keeping flies off cakes, wasn't it? That's what they were for. But yeah, I can see this working very well. Turbo Stream says, I live in the Shire too, Digwell, Selly Soakshire. We had rain yesterday till 1 o'clock. We didn't hear. Actually, I was in London, so that doesn't quite work. Digwell says, as Stuart Jackson showed us on his photo a few weeks ago, Aldi is cold frames for £35. I went into Aldi and they didn't have them. Didn't have any real garden stuff, actually. I was a bit disappointed. Although seeds are coming in. Their seeds are coming in. I've heard good things about their seeds. Turbo Stream says that cold frame is to replace the seed bed. I need to make a mesh cover for it. And Graham Arnold's joined. Evening, everyone. Good evening to you. So has anybody got any other types of cold frame cloches or any other sort of way to protect their plants that we haven't discussed, other than cloches or cold frames, or anything that we haven't discussed, other than, of course, greenhouses? We want to try and steer away from greenhouses because greenhouses, as much as I love a greenhouse, I think greenhouses are the one tool that I think every gardener should have if they can. They are an expense. They are a luxury. But I would love to know if anybody else has anything else they use. Turbo Stream says, I did buy a cheap cold frame. It was cheap for a reason. I might try and strengthen it if I can. This comes back to what we've often said. You buy cheap, you buy twice. You know, always be frugal, never be cheap. Buy the best that you can afford, in other words. Oh, there's a long way, loads of words to get around that today. Jenny says, Aldi have large black raised bed with cloche lid, approximately £40. I've not seen it in mine. I've not seen in it at mine at all. Nicholas says, I used to use the water containers off a water dispenser. Oh, that's a good one. Yes. So those of you that work in an office, I sort of work in an office now. I've got a desk and everything. Um, um, the water tower, you get those big plastic bottles, which are great. If you can get hold of some of those, they are really big cloches. I can't think how much they're. What, 5 gallons of water? I guess they're big things. If you can get hold of those, you cut the tops off those. They make really good cloches. I've got to try and get hold of some of those, actually. I usually, well, if I make my own cloches, it's usually a plastic bottle, clear plastic bottle at that, and cut the bottom off and use that. But I haven't got any. I haven't got any to show you at the moment. Nigel says heavyweight fleece is good. The cheap thin stuff rips in strong winds and rain. It does. Again, I come back to what I said earlier. You know, never be cheap. Always be frugal, and you get what you pay for. But the heavyweight fleece, I've had the thin stuff. It came free from something or another. I didn't buy it. But I found also if you left it in the shed over winter, you pulled it out and it came out in little pieces. It disintegrated when it was packed away. But heavyweight fleece or a fleece of any kind, I mean, I try and keep an eye on the weather anyway, as I've just discussed. And if I see it is going to get cold, I would run out with a fleece and protect some of my plants that need protecting. Nicholas says, I now have a large containers from beer making, oblong. Yeah, good. And your Audi is too posh, north-south divide, PMSL. Could be. I don't know. It's Audi at the end of the day, isn't it? Jenny says, my favorite is an upside-down transparent storage box. Here we go. I'm trying to, I have got a storage box down there, but it's a bit too big to grab. But yeah, plastic storage box. Take the lid off, turn it upside down, or stand the plants on the lid as well and use the box as a greenhouse. Or don't stand it on the lid, put them inside the box and place the lid on top to use as a greenhouse as well. Good one, that one, actually. I thank you. I like that. That one will come in handy a lot. Those water bottles apparently have quite a hefty rental fee. I have no idea. But I hear people use them. I think you can get hold of them for free if you know the right people. Nigel says, had the water dispensers where I worked, but there was an empty return deposit charged on them. Yeah, but if you know somebody in the business and you can, or go to the factory where they're going to get rid of them because they failed strength testing or something, or they're too old, then you might be able to get some out the skip sort of thing. Tabby Stream says, my cheap cold frame wasn't fox-proof. I caught one lying on top of it sunbathing. Well, that's the thing. It attracts heat, so it's going to be warm. So foxes, cats, they're going to want to lay on it. They're going to want to enjoy that sun. And that's a good thing. It means that we're doing something right. Anna Jones, I love your new raised bed in the latest video. Very classy to dig well, that is. Toby Stream says, oh God, Richard is a white collar now. He is in an office. I'm in an office and I'm in a factory. Well, so part of my work is in the office where I'm doing admin work. I created an Excel spreadsheet this week. First time I've ever done that. This is how much I've moved on. But yeah, I've got my own desk in the office, but I've also got my own room where I build my prototypes, my own workshop in the factory. So I've got lots of things going on here. It's a lot of fun. If we get time, we may get into it. Stuart says, my forest school lesson this week is gardening using recycling, i.e. plastic yogurt pots for sowing, half bottles for covering the pots to help with heat. Ooh, lots of good things going on there. Lots of good things. Recycling. I think actually in May I might be visiting your school, believe it or not. I'm not sure if I'm meant to say that now, thinking about it. Nigel says, before my Vitapods, I used to clear storage boxes as lids on my soil warming beds. Excellent. Excellent. I've got to get some Vitapods, I've decided. Vitapods are heated propagators, but they're big and you can extend them to make them go higher. I have got to get some for next year. Nicholas says, I used to work for a company. Mine came out to skip, damaged, but good for my garden. Excellent, excellent. Digwell says, 2 more to build yet. Talking about his beds, 2.4 meters long, 960 liters of compost in each. Ouch, it's a lot, isn't it? Kate says, I'm waiting for the veggie mesh to arrive, and then I'm going to use my sewing machine to do custom raised bed covers. This is getting very technical here, Kate, getting the sewing machine out, but please do share that with us. Anyway, elastic sewn into a folded section around the edges to keep it tight and without gaps. That, to me, I mean, I'm no good at sewing, so it's not something I'm going to do myself, but I like the idea of using the elastic around it to hold on tight. Please do share with us how you get on with that. Digwell says, in your own room, sounds like they're trying to keep you and your inventions out of the way for safety reasons. It's R&D. It's R&D. I don't know. I don't know if we run out of conversation later, then I might get into it. I don't really want to. It's a gardening show. I don't want to talk about this stuff too much. But if we run out of conversation, we may get into it. No, you're not yet. But see you in May. Yes. Yeah. Rob says, a lot of compost. You're going to get one of those bulk bags. Yeah, you're going to need it. 960 litres of compost is a lot. I mean, a standard bag from a garden centre is 50 litres. So you're going to need, what's that? 20 bags of compost. Yeah. Nigel says, Excel sheet. We'll be doing seed trackers on here soon. Yeah, you never know. You never know. What else we've got? Digwell says, no, I'm doing a baldrick. I have a cunning plan. Oh, I wonder what that could be. Over on Instagram, Roasted Cheese has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. Great you handle there as well. So I've got to admit, I really like Kate's idea of sewing in elastic around the bottom to hold it tight using this mesh. Has anybody done anything like that in the past? But I like that a lot because I think that would be a good, almost like a curtain. I almost think the veggie pods could do with something like that around the bottom, because there's at the bottom of the mesh, there is a tiny little gap where insects could come in, and a little curtain around that would work really well. Nigel says, to secure the insect mesh, I brought a large reel of bungee cords and make my own custom length of cords to fit around the structure. Even easier. If you're like me and you can't sew to save your life, bungee cord. That's brilliant. This is what I love about talking to you guys. Sometimes you just come out with some really good ideas and make life easier for everyone. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Turbo Extreme says, I use closed pegs on my bendy poles to hold the mesh tight. Actually, that's a point. Bendy poles. We haven't really spoken about the thing that is often found on allotments, the blue plastic pipe that is often twisted to make a hoop and stuck in allotment beds to make cloches or enviromesh to keep plants warm. We haven't discussed that. I'm sure some of you have done some of those. I've never made them myself. I've not really liked them, but if anybody has made them out of that blue bendy pole, tell us a bit more about it. Where do you get that blue pole, plastic pipe from? And how do you make it so they all stay in a relatively decent shape and don't fall over the place? Tell us more. Tell us more. Digwell says, I brought a roll of elastic to secure the mesh. Just as Nigel said, his turn to beat me to it. Yeah, elastic bungee cords. Excellent, excellent. Nicholas says, I think the elastic will not weather strong. I'd use paracord. Paracord doesn't have elasticity to it, though. I've probably got some paracord over. I used to have paracord all over the place. Stuart Jackson says you could use a clear backpack cover. I've used it in the past when I lost the cold frame lid. Clear backpack cover. That's not a bad idea either. And then Nigel says, my early video, I did sew by hand. 12-meter wide elastic by hand, 6 meters by 27 meters. Lasted a couple of years, then the elastic lost its stretch. Excellent. Nigel says the blue pipe MDPE from Screwfix. There we go. If you are looking to get some, head on down to your local Screwfix. They're everywhere now, Screwfix, aren't they? Every town, even in high streets. Turbo Stream says my poles were sold as a kit or as separate bits to make your own tunnels. They take apart for easy winter storage. Brilliant thing. Storage is one of the big problems, actually. I find with my cloches, those ones I showed you a picture of earlier that I got from my granddad. Storage is the biggest problem I have with those because they're quite big, they're quite bulky, they don't fold away. And because they were my grandfather's, I do want to look after them. So I do like to sort of put them in the corner when I don't need them. But I'm always worried about them, and they're always in the way no matter what they do because they are big things. Down on the allotment, I did buy a load from Wilco's of these sort of plastic cloches, plastic tunnels that I use, and they fold away to virtually nothing. But because I got so many of them, they're not virtually nothing. They take quite a bit of space up, and they can get in the way a bit too much. Digwat says best way to close the cap between the bed and the frame on the veggie pod is to stick down some door draft excluder foam. There we go. Good idea. Stuart Jackson says the blue pipe can be found on Amazon or other online store. And Amanda says, evening all, sorry I'm late. Hope you've had a good week in your new job, Richard, and that I haven't missed the update. I haven't gone into it. I've said I've had a really good week. I've got a desk, I've got a laptop, I've got my own workshop as well in R&D, and lots of things going on there. We may get into that conversation a little bit later on. Digwell says my paracord only lasts 2 years on the plot. Paracord, I mean, paracord is not meant to be from memory. It's not elastic, is it? Because it's designed to hold up parachutes, and you don't want parachutes stretching. Ballysing, I got mine free from a building site talking about the blue pipe. It's a water pipe the builders gave me cut-ins. Nicholas says blue pipe from Facebook Marketplace. Apparently you can get some on Facebook Marketplace as well. And Turbo Stream says mine came from garden naturally. Interesting. And Nathan says got my blue pipe from the skip. Good bit of skip diving. We do like some skip diving here, don't we? Diglet says plenty of blue pipe on the high street. You just need to dig down to find it for free. I know somebody goes and buries it. I mean, why bury perfectly good blue pipe? It could be used for something, couldn't it? Jenny says, I've never protected a bed as I don't have normal sized beds or shaped beds and full of different plant varieties. I don't plant out till the plants are old enough to stand on their own. So now this is one of the things that you could do, of course, is don't put your plants out until they are old enough and strong enough to stand on their own. I find the trouble with that is that I end up with so many plants and not enough space to keep them. So it is an option. It is an option, but you got to be very. You got. Oh, well, my wife would kill me if I kept all those plants, all the plants indoors. Beto says, been eating but listening. You know you can get a robot vacuum cleaners. Does anyone know if there's a robot weeder? In the time I got in the garden, that seems to have been all I have done. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. There is a robot weeder. I have seen it. It's like a spinning blade. You put it on your bed and it drives off in it like the robot cleaners. But you have to put things around your plants to protect them. Otherwise, it will chop those. They do exist. I don't think they're cheap. But my tip, and I'll talk about this on the podcast tomorrow, funny enough, my tip when it comes to weeding, little and often, go down into the garden every day for half hour. Start in the same place, do a bit of weeding, and start in the same place every day and repeat, and you gradually get further and further along. Be got to do it on a daily basis. Turbo Student says, mine were perfect for onions and brassicas, no aphids or leaf miner last year. Lucky you, lucky you. And Digger says, to be honest, I prefer black pipe. Doesn't stick out like a dog's cojones. Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. The black pipe, a little bit more discreet. The blue pipe does look very unnatural, but that could be a good thing. I don't know. Kate says, spring-loaded quart locks are what I'll be using to adjust the size. Can use any for any cord. Oh, I've got some of those somewhere, actually. I know exactly what you're talking about. The waterboard will give you cut-offs, or off-cuts. You got it right. We all got it round there somehow, didn't we? Jenny says, not enough space is part of the fun. Who needs a living room anyway? My wife, because it's full of junk anyway at the moment. Digrat says, I used to use loads of cold protection meshes, but now I just sow and grow by the seasons. Now this is this is actually over on Instagram, the gardening doc has joined. It's such a good point actually, because do we really need to protect our plants, or is it worth just sowing our plants at the right time? And in that case, why do we have grow lights? Why do we have heated propagators if we're going to sow our plants at the right time? For me, I think it's a very simple answer. There are some plants that I want to get started. So tomatoes, if we started our tomatoes off in May, which is when I would say they're probably safe to go outside, they will grow and they will produce, but you won't get as many as if you sow them a little bit earlier. And even then, if you get a bad summer, you probably won't get any tomatoes if you sow them in May. Nigel says, yellow gas pipe if you want to stand. Oh, where was it? If you want to stand out. I might have some red lead, well, not lead, steel pipe somewhere, actually. I could use that. Stuart says, here is another question. Why do weeds grow when everything else fails? I do have 4 alley arches, which were free. So why do weeds grow when everything else fails? That's simple. That's very simple. It's because it's the natural environment for the weeds to grow. It's their ideal environments. The sun, the temperature is just right for those weeds. Everything else we're trying to put in there is very unnatural. That's the honest answer to you. Toby Stream says, I don't use the hoops for cold protection, more pest control once a plants are planted. The two actually go in hand, don't they? Cloches and greenhouses and things like that all go in hand with plant protection at the same time as well. So, yeah, it does work. The only thing I have to protect against is the birds. Birds, yeah, birds. Can be a problem. Although I also think birds can also be a good answer for slugs and snails. But you only want them to eat what you want them to eat. Digrat says, but I think this is in response to what I was saying about starting plants earlier. But chilies, aubergines, tomatoes do not go into cold frames or cloches. Totally different subject. Okay, you can win that one. You can win that one. I can see what you're saying. I guess things like our brassicas, we can sow those in our cold frame at this time of year and they should be okay. Nigel says, will be sending you some allium leaf minder? Wait for that to turn up in the post. It stopped using Brute 33. Now I stopped using Brute 33. Now the birds leave me alone. Oh, sometimes you do make me laugh. Right, I tell you what. Let's cut away quickly to the cook-along video. Now, I've done this cook-along video a bit different because this week it was the parsnip cake, and I did try and make more bits to this, but it went wrong. But I wanted to give you a sort of point of view version of cooking this. But what I realised, for some reason, the light is just crap, and the light's coming in from the wrong direction, and it made my worktop look dirty. I washed down my worktop before I cooked this. However, this is the spiced parsnip and clementine cake, and this is how I made it. So today we are making a spiced parsnip cake. And what I've got here, 300 grams of plain flour in this bowl. Into that we're going to add 400 grams of parsnip, already grated. I save time using my what do you call it, food processor. We're also going to add 100 grams of oats, 200 grams of sugar, 4 tablespoons of baking powder. I've been busy in here making a mess, so everything's a little bit messy. We want some grated nutmeg. This is about a teaspoon. Some grated ginger. This is our homegrown ginger, of course. So, you know, big fan of using our own grown goodness where we can. We'll throw that in. A teaspoon of cinnamon. About right. Give this a good stir and mix up. I'm a bit intrigued as to how this is going to turn out. This is one of Chef Scott's suggestions. It's going to make quite a big cake, I think. But how will it turn out? That is the question we want to find out. Now, I could do a bit more mixing. It needs quite a big bowl, I've got to say. I don't normally make cakes. I'm on a diet, so this is going to be another interesting one. Then we need some, this is 3 clementines, juice and zest, except I couldn't find clementine, so I used easy peelers instead, and we'll just have to hope that that's going to work. Give us again a good mix. Starting to come together. Now, it also asks for 150 grams of apple sauce, sorry, so I've just quickly made our own. And then 100 mils, which I'm guessing is about that, of olive oil. I think that's the liquid materials, really. Look at that. It's actually starting to really smell nice. And actually, now those liquid materials have gone in, it's starting to sort of shrink, I guess you could say. We'll make sure this is all well mixed, like so. I think that's well mixed. The big question is this cake tin big enough? I think just about is. So we're going to put that in the oven. It smells absolutely amazing, I've got to say, actually. Getting some of that easy peelers come in. Could do with a little bit more mixing. We'll do that now. But it's smelling absolutely amazing. Just going to lay that down. I'm going to pop that in the oven and cook it, and then let it cool, and we'll see how it tastes. There we go. This is how it turned out. The second file to that was corrupted, but this is how it turned out. I think when we look at it, it's a little bit dense on the bottom, So I think it took about an hour and a half in the oven to cook. The real question is, what does it taste like? Now, I already know because I've eaten this, as I said, corrupted file, but I better eat it with you guys just to make sure. I didn't do any frosting on this, I should say, because I thought, you know, I'm on a diet, so I just wanted to try and reduce the sugar content as best as I could. That actually tastes really nice. It's got the parsnip taste is there. There's not much clementine, if I'm honest, or easy peelers. I couldn't find clementine at all, but The parsnip flavour, you know, like how you have a carrot cake, it's like that, but with parsnips instead. Really nice, actually, really nice. I would give that 8.5 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10. Has anybody ever had a parsnip cake before? Tried parsnip cake? Jenny says that recipe would be good or great for those parsnips that come out the ground all forked and misshaped. They can be hard to cut up to roast. Absolutely, yeah. Run it through the food processor to grate it, and there you go. You've got a delicious parsnip cake recipe. Digler says, I have dense bottom. I put it down to walking a lot. Stu says, "Hi boys, you're all showing your age, Brute 33." Oh, there's a conversation going on there. Yeah. Rob says, "I like courgette cake." Yeah, I haven't had courgette cake for a while. Jenny says, "I would love to try that cake." I've got a large amount of cake that I can't eat, to be honest. We're going to have to freeze it, but it's nice, actually. I'm quite surprised. I don't know if anybody has ever thought about putting parsnip in a cake, but I guess carrot cake or tomato cake, courgette cake, it all goes together well. Looks nice, Richard. Thank you. Thank you. It does taste nice. It does taste nice. I think it needed cooking a little bit longer just because it is so dense on the bottom. As you can see, it's fluffy at the top and then dense on the bottom. Other than that, it tastes good. Nigel says courgette cake with a thumbs up. And Scott says, I will have to give it a try myself. The recipe I've seen in the book called Ebb and Flow. Great book. Definitely recommended. Yes, so Scott recommended this put this up as a recipe last week, and he actually sent me photos from his book. Funnily enough, I found exactly the same recipe online, so we managed to make it together, find the recipe and get it sorted out. So I'm happy with that. I have to say I am happy with that. Hargrave Gas says, got to love cake. Yeah. It's weird. I'm on a diet, so I don't really want to eat cake. But yeah. Nigel says, take the W equals cake to work for fellow workers and brownie points. I could do that. They do keep seeming to bring in cakes, which is rather annoying. Apparently, I never knew this. When it's your birthday, you got to bring in cakes. I never knew that. I always thought it would be the other way round. Digwell says, so many veg are good in cakes. Parsnip, carrot, courgette, marrow, squash, potato, etc. Potato cake. That's one I'm not familiar with. I'm sure it would work, though. I'm sure it would work. Over on Instagram, Trish Yuqua Hart has joined. Welcome along. I'm sorry for pronouncing your name incorrectly, but I do my best. Obviously, I will now need a recipe to cook next week for our recipe cook along attempt at finding something interesting to cook. I don't know what to call it anymore. Your cooking challenge. Challenge me to cook something for next week that really needs to be from our homegrown vegetables where possible. Stuart says chocolate and beetroot cake is lush. Beetroot and chocolate do go together. Add a bit of chili as well, and it is even nicer if you like chili, that is. Digwell says not a good idea to take cake in. He wants to keep his new friends. Oh dear. Rob says potato cake. Turbo Stream, yes, birthday cake and donuts. Yeah, that's what's been coming in. I never knew that. I'm learning something every day here. Next week's recipe, breakfast potato cakes, great with an egg on it, etc. A lot of people are saying about potato cakes for next week, actually. Graham Arnold says, had parsnip wine once, never again. I made parsnip wine once. I'm not a wine drinker, so I didn't like it. But my stepdad, who does like a bit of a tipple, shall we say, said it was quite strong. Yeah, parsnip wine. I have to do that again one day. Nigel says cakes in on birthday is a tradition. Also, sweets are a rock when returning from holidays. I'm learning something here. Tabby Stream says I made leek and potato soup this week. Lovely, lovely. One of my favourite soups that as well. Oh, sounds yummy. Beto says never cake at our works, as we had to get meat pies with gravy at brew time. Meat pies with gravy. Lovely, lovely. Do you think, has anybody else got anything else they want to say about the Cloches or the growhouses? Stuart says, luckily my birthday is in the school holidays. More cake for me. I'm not, yeah. Terry says, fudge was my holiday bring back to the office present. Excellent, excellent. Digger says potato cakes, 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 potato cakes. Try saying that when you've had a few. Looks like it's going to be potato cakes for next week then. I'm glad that's sorted. That means I've got to remind everybody at the end. Rob says, where I worked lots of years ago, we had to take everyone to the pub. Nice, nice. And Scott says tatty scones recipe. I had tatty scones when I was in Scotland. Was it tatty scones? Like a pancake of potato scone type thing. Looks more like a pancake, but made of potatoes. That's what I thought it was. Graham says, Digwell, that's what I thought. Felt rough for 3 days. Kate says, I've just made brownies for my colleagues at work tomorrow. Still cooling in the kitchen. Is it your birthday then, Kate? Or are you just doing it out of the goodness of your own heart? Potato bread, that is. Is it potato? I'm sure they called it potato scones because it was, I can't remember. I can't remember now. But they looked like pancakes, but with potato. Jenny says, one little request, if I may. Please place a little dish of water for bees, etc., in your greenhouses, polytunnels, etc. They fly in for early flowers and warmth, then get exhausted. Bit of sugar water as well does them well to good too. Yeah, that'll work. Stuart says, has anyone made a cold frame out of old windows? Are they too heavy? So actually, yes, I can answer this, Stuart. I have made not so much out of old windows, old glass doors from fridges. I've made a cold frame out of. Well, it's more I placed it on top of a wooden frame, like a raised bed. I placed these windows on top of that, and it did work. It did work, but it could be better. These were fridge doors, glass fridge doors. You hear me talk about these a lot. I used those on these beds. Digger says you have my to Kate, you have my address. I'll cover the postage. I will make sure we have cake in May. Excellent. Not my birthday, just like making folks happy. Absolutely. Nicholas says put sponge in the dish so they don't drown. Talking about the what do you call it? Bees. Yeah. Belly silly tatty scones in Scotland, potato bread in Northern Ireland. Okay. Yeah, and tatty scones. Yeah, that's it. Scottish potato scones. They are like pancakes, potato cake. Yeah, tatty scones. Yes, tatty scones. Great for breakfast with lawn sausage. Oh, yeah. Whenever my wife goes up to Scotland, she always brings back a load of lawn sausage because it's the best. It looks like it's going to be these potato cakes for next week then. If Jenny, if you can make a note for that. A guy on our site made a greenhouse from old windows and wooden pallets that have been standing for years. On my old allotment, actually, on that same night, on my old allotment, there was a greenhouse that was made out of plastic bottles. In fact, I've seen this in some of our schools as well. Or some of the schools I used to look after, I don't look after them anymore. I've retraining my brain on that. But they got a load of plastic bottles and stuck them through bamboo canes to make a wall of plastic bottles to make their own greenhouse. It seemed to work quite well. I would probably use a bit of bathroom sealant in between to make them even a bit more waterproof. Would need a lot of bathroom sealant, but it seems to work. Oh, it seemed to work. Gary says, my friend made a cold frame using a shower door as a hinged lid. Shower door, that sounds like a good idea. There was somebody on YouTube, I think it was Blue Star Dave or Bluster Dave, however you pronounce his name, who made a cold frame out of the boot lid, a car boot lid, if I remember correctly. And that seemed to work quite well as well. Can't beat an Ulster breakfast. Does that include these tatty scones? Let me know. Rob says, same here, mate. But when I go over, I always go to the cafe for one. Yeah. Digwell, small stones, pebbles, just seen YouTube shorts. Stuart Jackson, I really want to make a greenhouse out of bottles or a cold frame. Start with a cold frame first, would be my advice. Start small, then you can learn from it. When you build a greenhouse, you've already got a key skill trained into that. That's what I would say. Make a cold frame out of these plastic bottles and then take it on to the greenhouse. That'd be a good thing to do with the kids. That's why I'm as size I am, Rob. Graham says, white and black pudding with fried eggs. You're making me hungry. Digwell says, I saw a channel place donated glazing units on an old brick-built cold frame. Nearly broke his back. It was so heavy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Andrew says, evening all. We'll be watching in the background today. Evening, Richard. Good evening, Andrew. I believe you're in Blighty at the moment as well. More on that a little bit later on. Jenny says, I'm planning to make a water bottle roof to collect water from my water butts, a little sheltered seating area underneath. It could work. It can definitely work. I would be inclined to, instead of with water bottles, if you're going to make it, oh God, I've just had an idea. So if you're going to make, if you really want to be clever, it's going to take a lot more time to make a cold frame or a water bottle roof to collect water. Instead of just putting your bamboo cane through the bottle, what you could do is cut the bottles lengthways and then use that to make like a tiled roof like that. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that clearly? The Romans, how they used to make their clay tiles for the roof is just got some clay and they molded it on their arm, and that was their roof tiles. And I'm thinking a plastic bottle would pretty much be the same thing if you cut it in the same way. That's a different way of doing it. It's going to be a bit harder to do, but probably a bit more reliable. Where have we got? Jenny says you cut them and thread them onto canes. They look like roof tiles. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what I was thinking. Sometimes I've got to try and avoid the ones where you're talking amongst yourselves sometimes, not being rude or anything, just easier. Spanish tiled roof, curves alternate direction. Also would help. Yeah, that would work. Spanish tiled roof, but it also help with collecting rainwater as well, quite nicely. I like that. I like that idea. It's given me a good idea. Stuart says this is another reason I love this show. It's like being at school. Thank you all. Yeah, we can make a cold frame. Oh, I don't drink much in the way of plastic bottles anymore. But if I did, I could be looking at making these cold frames out of it with a Spanish tiled roof, as Nigel called it, and produce a really good thing at the end of the day. But I'm originally a Belfast boy, but live in Carrickfergus now, Rob. Conversation going on there. I saw that too, Richard, cut bottle. Also, beer cans made cut top and bottom off now down onto wooden supports underneath. Beer cans, but beer cans will eventually rust. I'll be worried about sharp things when they rust as well. But yeah, could work. Oh yeah, I can see that working. Nigel says to Stuart, "Stop talking when teacher speaks up. Go stand in the corner." Same here. Hoping we can get onto the 3 times table soon. I'm stuck on 2. Oh dear. And Rob says a garden show talking about Spanish buildings and Irish breakfast. It only happens on the Veg Grower podcast, doesn't it? Oh dear. But this is the whole thing. We don't have it planned out. The fluid nature of this conversation. Thank you for helping me with my Sunday night planning. This has made my life so much easier. Thanks, team. And this is a great thing. I think Stuart now is going to take this into his school and get his kids to make a cold frame out of plastic bottles. This is something that, we're teaching children without realizing we're teaching children. What a great idea. Digrat says beer cans are aluminium or aluminum. Yes, of course they are. Of course they are. They're not likely to rust, although you do see them rusting, don't you, sometimes? Yeah. What have we got? Nigel says beer cans aluminium. You buy them. Me, Rob, and Digwell will empty them. And then you can take them into Stuart's school and get them to do what you need to with them. See you after school, Digwell. Aluminium cans, cut top and bottom, cut lengthways, laid flat. That can make, I see what you're saying. So like the bottle cans, you can do it with aluminium cans and make like guttering in Spanish roof as well. Yeah. Rob on Ulster fry has potato and soda bread. An Irish fry only has soda bread. Interesting. Rob says, I sell my beer cans, LOL. I take it there's no volunteer for people to get stuck in with drinking this beer for the school or for this project. If we were to make something out of beer cans, there'd be no shortage of volunteers to help with the drinking. Perhaps there's something we should do. Perhaps there's some fundraising thing we should do. Donate beer. We'll drink the. I mean, you won't. You can. I won't. We'll drink the beer can. You can drink the beer, and then we'll turn the beer cans into something productive in the garden. How does that sound? Right. I tell you what. What should we do? Mission for the week. Now, the mission for the week was to try and grow some food out of some stuff off scrap food. So, actually, we'll start with the checkup on the sweet potato from a couple of weeks ago. Bearded Growers have joined over on Instagram. So not much really happening with the sweet potato, but I can see what looks like roots I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. The roots look like they're beginning to develop, but it's still very early days just yet. We're keeping a close eye on it. I'm told not to worry. We'll keep a close eye on that. But the mission, growing food from kitchen scraps. So what I've got here, in fact, let's switch over to that camera. What I've got here is some parsnip tops, obviously for the parsnip cake. Good evening, Bearded Growers, they're saying. Good evening to you. And some carrot tops. And all I've done is I've placed these in water. We've got to replace this water on a daily basis, and we're hoping they're going to start to grow. Have I done that right? Is that going to work? We could, of course, add some other stuff to that. Watercress was one thing I was thinking of, and things like that. I can't think of anything else we could really do in the same way. But we're going to grow some of that own food. We'll keep an eye on it, and we'll keep referring back to those and see how they grow. Is that mission failed or mission successful? One of the other things I wanted to say is that in the autumn we planted garlic from supermarket bought garlic, and that seems to be growing very, very well at the moment. Right, where are we? Stuart says, I'm happy to drink the beer. It may take me a while as I only drink about 2 pints a week. That's more than me. Rob says, "Oh no, that's something going on there." Jenny says, "Richard, does the potato get some daylight?" It's here. It's right next to my heat hydroponic system, which gets plenty of light. In fact, my tomato in there is flowering, so it's definitely getting plenty of light. Stuart says another lesson we are doing this term is growing from scraps. There we go. So we got to think about what we can do. Digler says I meant rich from selling the cans. Absolutely, absolutely. Jenny says hello, bearded growers. Hope you are both well. Digler says works with celery bottoms and onion tops too. A bit pointless with onions though. That's what I thought as well. I did think about doing onions in the same way, but I thought just didn't seem to make sense. I guess spring onions you apparently you can do from the bottoms, and that's meant to be able to regrow just like celery, but I don't know. Is that mission failed or mission accomplished as well? The Kentish Gardeners joined. Even in all, I'm very late. No problem. No problem. We've been discussing cloches and grow houses and cold frames. If you have any of those, I think that conversation is more or less over. We're sort of moving on with the missions and things. Don't forget, you need to set me a mission for next week, a challenge for next week. As we're getting into the flow of things, so we're getting there. What else have we got? Anything else coming up? No, nothing yet. Okay. So, do you want to hear about my new job, my week at my new job? Because I think I need to fill a void for a minute before we get the rant in. So, yes, I started my new job on Monday. First 2 days was basically induction, learning where everything is, the health and safety side of things, and watching how a fridge is built in the factory. Basically, just watching people work, which I hated. I have got photos, don't worry, I've got photos. I hated watching people work because I prefer to be working. But they wanted me to basically know how the factory works. They want everyone in the office to know how the factory works. It's quite fascinating because I watched these. Well, they're sort of like chest freezers. They're vaccine fridges, but I got to see those being built, and surprising how easy it was. But as I said, joined this. I've got my own desk. I've got my own laptop, which I've barely used yet. And on or I've been sitting on meetings with suppliers and stuff like that as well to try and get our head around things because there's changes coming up that affect the production. I.e., suppliers have suddenly decided they're cancelling or stopping the certain compressors, so we've now got to come up with other compressors to fill that void. But the real highlight for me was Wednesday, a new ice machine that is going into, this is really boring actually, going into John Lewis. I managed to finish that and get that into my production line. And then Thursday, I built an entire medicine fridge from scratch. Really pleased with it. Really pleased with myself for that. Yeah, it's been a good week. A really good week. I've got to say, really exciting to see what I'm doing. And what I really like, these vaccine fridges that we make in the factory, they are the biggest customers, UNICEF and WHO. Basically, these vaccine fridges are to run off a solar bank, and they go off to third world countries. They're often, there's pictures of locals carrying these fridges on bamboo canes, but they go in a mud hut with this solar array outside, and that means that children in these third world countries are getting the vaccines that they needed, which is really quite heartwarming actually to hear that as well. It was a good thing. It was really, really interesting. So yeah, it's been a good week. Been a good week. Rob says, challenge, build a cold frame from old windows. Where am I going to get some old windows from? Where am I going to get some old windows from? That's the only thing. But I could, if it was build a cold frame from scrap, I could do that somehow. Yeah, okay. If you want that to be the challenge, say I. What have we got? What have we got? Digwell says inductions are always very trying. I had mine at Thames Water after I had been there for a year. I could have given the talks. LOL. Absolutely. Richard, the CEO, says Rob. I'm not CEO. I'm refrigeration development engineer. Is what I called. Yeah, I'm called. My official title. Jenny says, "Well done, Richard. Amazing and very rewarding." And Digwell says, "Nice one, Richard." Yeah. Thank you, by the way. The chemistry, the first week in anything new is always tiring and becomes a blur towards the end. It does. It does. I just don't like watching people work when I feel I should be doing something. Belly Scene says, inductions, pointless for my job. You can't go wrong. Oh, Rob says, an old window shop. Yeah. Old windows, again, plenty on the high street for free. Or Kate says, reclaim yard. I think the high street is going to be the best option because I got to find them for free. I'm a little bit skint at the moment because I didn't get paid for last month. I didn't work last month. That's why I didn't get paid. But if you want me to build a cold frame out of scrap, we can do that. I say aye. There we go. Oh, Stuart, yeah, like and subscribe. Yeah, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe, and follow the click the notifications so you know when we go live. This is flying by tonight. It's nearly 7:20 already. Turbo Stream says my cold frame wasn't made from scrap fence wood. Wasn't made from scrap. My cold frame wasn't made from scrap fence wood, pallet wood, and a piece of polycarbonate from my late uncle's roof. He would approve of it. My cold frame wasn't, or was. I think that should be was. Stuart says aye. Jenny says aye. And Diggrass says, buy on the high street. I meant still fitted to the houses. Yeah, I know. That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, how dare those houses hoard those windows? How dare they hoard those windows? Buy a cheap plastic grow house. I can't afford it. I'm loving it tonight. Yeah, it's been a good one actually. I'm quite pleased that everybody seems to be enjoying themselves tonight. As Digwell says, easily pleased. Right, I tell you what we will go to now. We'll go to, I've set this up, so hopefully this is going to work. We will go to your photos. Now, these are photos that have either been sent in to me or have been in our Facebook group. So, first of all, this photo came in earlier today, and it's from the wonderful, I can picture him, I can't think of his name. It's going to come up. I hate it when I forget. Andrew, of course it's Andrew. You know when you name somebody's mind, your mind just goes blank for somebody's name. That's exactly what happened there. Andrew has flown into England and he's been helping his mum in the garden as soon as he arrived. Good old Andrew. Good to help his mum as well. I don't think he was complaining. I think he enjoyed it. Now, next we have got, I'm going to have to wait for this. I'm going to have to move this over here so I can see it, because I can't see it all very well, I'm afraid. So with Chili Kate, there we go. Chili Kate, she's been enjoying a nice day on the allotment. And you can see, we've all said this weather this weekend has been lovely. Everybody seems to have enjoyed being out in the sun. And you can see there's a nice cup of tea on the allotment. What more can you ask for? Amanda is after a bit of advice on how to protect this wooden raised bed. She recently obtained it. She wants to fill it up with compost, of course, but she doesn't want it rotting at the same time. My advice is to cover it over in something like linseed oil or beeswax oil. Just make sure it's fully treated. Maybe I couldn't find the stuff, but the stuff I really wanted to suggest was, as he dropped stuff all over the place, was this stuff. You Stop Rot. It's a wood preservative made from linolene. That's the stuff I would use myself, but unfortunately, I can't seem to find it for sale anywhere. And also a insert, a mesh. What's it called? Fabric insert to keep the compost away from the wood. Although Rob says an old compost bag with holes in it. In fact, you could do like a grow bag in there, could work quite well as well. Kate's been busy with her label maker. I love this because I've got one of these, or this exact label maker as well. These are from a company called Nimbot. They sell them on Amazon. They're under 15 quid. You simply connect them up to your phone through an app and you print your labels. They're so easy and so useful. Kate's been using it to label her plants. It is brilliant. Stuart has got to prick out all his tomatoes. They look like they've germinated quite well and growing on rather nicely. Looks good. Looks very, very good. Now, Steve says spring is in the air, but I still think spring might be literally here, might be round the corner, but I think we are still expecting a bit of a cold snap. Nathan has been busy tidying up his greenhouse, which looks absolutely amazing. He certainly looks like he has been busy in there. I love his little bench down the side there as well. I can see that being a very, very useful space indeed. Now, Thomas shared his grow light setup, something I talked about a couple of weeks ago. And this looks absolutely stunning, I've got to say. Grow light on top, a lot of tin foil or reflective material around the sides. And it seems to be working quite well because those plants look incredibly, incredibly healthy. And this looks like it's an old fireplace or something. I can't work out where it is because it looks solid, but it works. It works. Bellows has shared some of his humour. Excuse me. This is one of those jokes that comes around every year at this time. Just to let you know, I've been admitted to hospital. I've just gone and poisoned myself. I ate what I thought was an onion, but it was a daffodil bulb. They said I'll be out sometime in spring. So please do keep posting your photos. Post them in our Facebook group. Send to me via social media or email me, richard@veggrowpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@veggrowpodcast.co.uk. Where was we with the comments? Because I think there was lots of comments coming in. Oh, hang on, let's go back to that one as well. Andrew says, no, I didn't complain, but my back is protesting a bit. Still, it's great to be back in Blighty. Indeed, it's great to see you here. Well, not that I've seen you, but great to hear you here as well. Kentish Gunner, old compost bags help to protect the inside. There we go. Rob says an old compost bag with holes in it. That could work. Digwell was asking, anyone going to the Malvern Spring show on Sunday, the 11th of May? Still undecided myself. I'm not sure. I may not be going on the Sunday. If I go, it'll be on the Friday. If I go, I'm still undecided myself. I'll be going to the week, 2 weeks before Gardener's World. No, it'll be the week before Gardener's World Spring Fair. Anna Jones, lovely photo of Andrew's mum. Big smiles all round, wasn't there? Nigel says, line the inside with DPM, damp-proof membrane, and paint with duck's back paint. Duck's back paint? What's that? I've never heard of it. That sounds interesting. Rob says, I was thinking about it, but the wife is away, so no. Turbo Stream says, probably not Digwell. Wasn't that taken with it last time? Digwell gives a thumbs up. Nigel says, I've got one of those small label printers. Found the labels are not UV stable and faded by the end of the season. I can see that being a problem, actually. I tend to use mine indoors, but I can see them being faded by the end of the season. I have read that different labels from their ranges have different UV stability and waterproofing. So it's worth looking at the labels that you're using with those. Stuart says, tomatoes all pricked out into 9cm pots. Excellent. Only use mine for plant sales. Rob says, I use a brother plinter for my labels. It is great. Absolutely. Jenny says, great photos, everyone. Nigel says, is that VE celebration week? Might be, actually. Can't remember. Digwell says, if anyone is having trouble sleeping, my latest video shows me making Digwell's dibbers. Interesting, interesting. We'll go and watch that afterwards. And Stuart says, I'm going to Malvern on the Friday. Excellent. If I do go on a Friday, I may see you there. I'm not saying I will just yet. I'm saying I may. Now, we've just got time to get my Richard's rant in. So we'll quickly do that. And we'll finish off with that, with your thoughts on that. And then we'll sign off. Okay, well, it's that time of the week for a Richard's rant. This is where I let off some steam and moan about something that has been going on. Now, I struggled this week. I've had a good week. So finding something to really moan and complain about has been a struggle because everything's good. But I did come up with something, and I think it is relevant to something that goes on in all our lives. Now, whenever I do any work in my house, I always am sure to notify my neighbours, particularly the ones that are attached to our house. We live in a semi-detached house. And the reason I always notify my neighbours is that I always think it's just polite. If we're going to be doing a lot of noise, a lot of drilling, a lot of grinding, or anything like that, it's only polite that we let our neighbours know. It's a joys of living in a community, isn't it? We all have to work together. We all have to live together. So we need to come up with some reasonable ways of sorting things out. So whenever I do any work, I mean, apart from the odd, 2 minutes of drilling or something, we let our neighbours know. And this includes when we replaced our fences many years ago now, but we let our neighbours know because it's going to affect them. We even checked with them. They were happy with the fence that we had chosen because it's a little bit different, but I digress a little. What is my rant? Last week before our live stream, you may recall I mentioned this last week, is that our neighbours, they decided to change their fence panels on their fence, which, fair play to them. They wanted to do that. It's their fence. They can do what they like. And I'll be honest, I like it. We've got a better looking fence. We've got a more secure fence, which will keep Roxy in. So it's worked to our benefit. But this did mean one of our trees, the branches were in the way. And they've spoken to me about this before. I'm trying to deal with it to try and get rid of that tree for them. And for myself as well. And I've mentioned this many times. I just cannot find anybody who's willing to remove that tree for me. I pull out quotes, ask for quotes, and it's a struggle. Anyway, I digress again. The rent here, and I don't really want to rant about it because it's not a problem for us. It's not a problem for our neighbours. But I can see it being a problem for some other people. Our neighbours didn't tell us they were replacing their fence panels. The only way that I knew is I was actually upstairs working, and I sort of went outside to get a few minutes fresh air. Roxy came out with me. She started barking at the fence, and all of a sudden the fence panel just lifted up. Roxy ran indoors, scared. And we were lucky. We were lucky in that front. Had we known, I would have made sure that I didn't let Roxy out. Our neighbours had their grandchildren round. Although Roxy's not an aggressive dog, I think she can be quite scary. And had she just ran into the neighbours because there was no fence stopping her and something had happened with the children, it could have been a bit of a problem. Now, as I said, I really don't want to rant about this because for me it's not been a problem. I love our neighbours. We get on well. We dealt with it. It's more I'm trying to find something to rant about for you guys. But I do think it's only polite and let your neighbours know if you are doing anything that may affect them. And it takes a 2-minute call. It's never a problem. I just think it's just polite. I don't know what you guys think about on that. Let us know in the chat. Indeed, what do you think on that? I was a bit bemused why that video came out as cinematic instead of full HD. Sorry, I finished off that cake while doing that. I'm going to have to... That's weird. That confused me for a moment. Anyway, yeah. It doesn't hurt to be courteous. It doesn't hurt. I'd probably take it to extreme because, as Digwell says, not good, Richard. It does not hurt to be courteous. Exactly. I just think whenever we do anything, it could be we've got the builders in, or decorators in, going to be making a bit of noise. We let our neighbours know. And Nigel says, my neighbours don't give a about anyone. It's not polite, is it? It's not polite. We all got to live together. We all got to live in our own ways. We need to work with everybody. And that was my rant for the week. Please hit the thumbs up before you leave, everyone. Yeah, there we go. But I'd love to know, do you think it's courteous. Do you think it's right that you let your neighbours know whenever you're going to do any work? We're getting into overtime a bit here. I think the chat has really gone quick tonight. But I'd love to see if anybody else agrees with me. You're doing anything, let your neighbours know. Rob says same here to Nigel, talking about his neighbours, not giving us, yeah. Nigel says respect is going down the drain everywhere, unfortunately. I agree. I do agree. I don't know where it's come from, or is it from a fear of being told, no, you can't do that? Jenny says manners cost nothing. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I want to say I'm not annoyed with my neighbours at all. It wasn't a problem. I just think it was something that they could have just said. Andrew says, and after the work, it's good to thank your neighbours and take them a bottle or something. Absolutely right as well. Yeah. Yeah. Rob says, great show again, Richard. Thanks a lot. Well, oh, yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. Gary, would you inform your allotment neighbours about anything? New shed, for example. Oh, if it's going to affect them, then yes. Only if it affects them. That's what I would say. It could be causing a shadow on their plot or something. Thanks for another chat, says Hargrave. Indeed. Tabby Stream says it's just courtesy to tell someone doing what you were doing work on a boundary. My neighbours didn't tell me the trees were coming down. I had workmen in my garden. I didn't complain as the tree was a pain. Absolutely. Just let them know. I always do. Digwell, I do. The last time was in 1997. Done stuff all since. Yeah, yeah. Definitely polite to inform them. Absolutely. Stuart says, yes, you should always talk to your neighbours if possible. But sometimes it's not possible. Agreed. Nigel says to Gary, just have to inform the committee to get their blessing. Now, still check with your neighbours if it's going to impact on them. Thank you all for another great show. See you all next week. Says Stuart, you're all crumbling to get out of here now, aren't you? I'm going to keep going for a little bit longer just to see how long I can keep you here for. Thanks, Richard. Good listening while Mum and I watch Crafts. Of course, Crafts is on, isn't it? And Turbo Stream says, I moved but didn't tell my neighbours as they were horrible people. Was glad to be away from them. Only time I didn't say anything. Don't blame you. Don't blame you. Right, guys. I think you are all in agreement with me. It is only right to be polite. I think it is time to wrap this one up for tonight. I think it is time we get out of here. We will be back again next Sunday at 6. And what are we going to talk about next Sunday? It's not Easter. I will figure it out during the week, or we'll get Scott and Jenny to come up with a suggestion for the topic for next week. Anyway, right, guys, you take care. I'll see you again next time.